Cool. Yeah, well, first off, just want to say thank you, everybody, for taking the time to come in and do our Stay Moving series. This is the second series. I'm really excited about our guest that we have today. His name is Alex. He's from a local pet store in town called Kahoots Feed and Pet, and we'll go into that a little bit later. Just as a quick refresher, for those that don't know, the whole vision with this whole series is essentially to share knowledge and insight for everybody. The mindset that we want to have throughout this whole collaborative series is to truly think differently and conduct an open dialogue. And the goal with it is to keep a step ahead in a shifting economy. And by us all coming together every single Friday morning, work together, become stronger on the other side. And that's one of the biggest things that we wanted to do, is just how can we be authentic and be true by having everybody here with us today. So just want to do a quick little shout out to the One Club for Creativity in San Diego. Actually, I sit on the board with them, and they're helping kind of co-sponsor this for us. For those that don't know, it's a nonprofit organization in town that is truly meant to help marketing and advertising community in San Diego. Last week, we actually built a key resource that's included on this page, and it has anything from a regional standpoint to a local standpoint with the actual resources that you need, getting a loan, getting a job, all that stuff in the industry. So if you want to take a look at that, or if you know anybody, feel free to share it, and that'd be greatly appreciated. So quick agenda for today. We're going to chat through brick and mortar trends, because we see right now, especially in lieu of the COVID-19 situation, a lot of these businesses are getting tremendously affected. So we just want to chat through a little bit of that. As a second thing, chat through the 5 things brick and mortar brands can do right now from a creative, digital, and business standpoint. And then, like I said earlier, really excited to have one of our dear clients, Alex, on here. And then at the end, we'll kind of end with an open dialogue. So, ultimately, kind of set the stage for brick and mortar trends. As many of you guys know, a lot of retail companies, they're having a lot of closures or limited hours. Unemployment across the board is getting higher, from the leadership team to corporate, to also store managers and associates as well. So we're seeing that happen a lot more. There's been a heavy decrease in retail store traffic. We're starting to see a new trend with the idea of move through a store, which is essentially 87% of people are now saying that they want touchless devices. So when they're going through, everybody's staying, 6 feet behind each other, and then they're really looking to check out without even talking to anybody. So we're going to see a huge shift with this in terms of technology. We are seeing from a broad spectrum, just kind of overall, that e-commerce stores are up around 14%. But on the latter half, the biggest thing is that most brands are struggling on the fulfillment side of things. So demand is higher, but supply is a little bit lower. Some of the things that we're starting to notice is discretionary spending is meant to extend into 2021, but there's going to be new habits that will form. And then what we're seeing as well is that, the market is poised to grow more in 2022, and I know that's a couple years out. But essentially what's happening is now, over the next couple months or so, everybody's trying to figure out, okay, what do they actually need versus what do they want? Which is something that, over the last 6 months, last year, we've seen kind of sale after sale after sale, and a very heavy rise in consumerism. And now we've kind of shifted the market away from that, and now it's about what are the necessities that they need, and then what are the products that brands can actually create that will add value in their lives. And so I think long term, we're going to see a huge shift in the way that we manufacture goods, to the way that we source ingredients, to the whole supply chain as well. Moving into the second part, the other thing too is just businesses are becoming a lot more conservative with their spending, right? A lot of things are on hold. Some brands are really spending a lot more on the Instagram, on the Facebook, you name it. But a lot of other ones are actually just kind of hunkering down and essentially creating some of their retail environments and making it more of a headquarter for them. Or you're starting to see other co-brands or other companies do a lot more pop-ups. And a lot of these trends were actually starting to happen pre-COVID, but now since COVID hit, a lot of things have started to shift. The biggest thing that I know a lot of people are always worried about is, what does the millennial consumer want versus looking a little bit at the older demographic. The good news is that the millennial, although they are very focused on mobile buying, buying from Instagram, buying from Facebook, they still do want and demand the in-store experience. So the e-commerce side of things is going to continually evolve for a lot more of your buying essentials, right? So if you think about it, what are the items that you need on the regular? How can you get those on either subscriptions? How can you get those automated every month? But then when they're looking to find new brands, or they're looking for more of an experience, we are seeing them want to go in store. And a lot of the brands such as like Lululemon, I think has been leading the way for that. And so it's just really excited to see what happens post this. I was talking about it earlier, and truly the new currency for all things product is really, if it's good for your body, it's good for everything. And we're really seeing that health is going to be the new wealth. So people becoming a lot more health conscious, people looking a lot more at like what are the ingredients, where are things sourced from, is going to be huge. And so for the brands that are starting to be a lot more authentic and letting people know where they're getting their products from, where they're manufacturing it, are going to be the ones that are going to succeed. The last kind of point on this whole situation with brick and mortars is, a quote is, and a lot of people have been talking about this idea of the new norm, but a quote that I found is, many generational attitudes have been tied to a singular event that leave their imprint. It remains to be seen that this is one of them, and it's not hard to imagine that that's not going to happen. So the biggest caveat is that this is a huge moment that is going to shift things in the future, for better or for worse. And so we think that now with consumer trends, with how it used to be pre this, and then now where it's going to be, we're going to be seeing a huge shift moving forward. So definitely a lot of new things happening with brick and mortar, and it's going to be interesting to see how stores kind of hold up over the next 4 to 6 months post the COVID stuff going on. And then I'll just kick it over to you, Ben, if you want to take it on from here.
Sweet. Yeah. So I'm going to cover the next the first few for these 5 things that brick and mortar stores can do. We took a look at the industry and some of these trends that are happening, and wanted to sort of provide some insight on, what retail stores can do if they're strictly, in person. They have consumers that actually come into their location on a regular basis. And maybe don't necessarily have that e-commerce resource to be able to leverage during this time. So first things first, I think, from a very high level, knowing that retail stores may not have that e-commerce drive or have that revenue coming in through a sales channel, and may not be in a position of brands like Kahoots that do have that e-commerce side. I think a huge thing is really just figuring out what opportunities we can leverage to really either get content and information out there to have consumers either focused on us in the short term, or somewhat build value in, what we can do in the long term, or at least now to build value in the long term. So, that may be, doing curbside pickup, like what Kahoots is doing right now, Dick's Sporting Goods, these larger brands that are able to have, consumers still buying product either online or over the phone, taking credit card information and purchasing product and doing pickup. That's a great thing that I think I've seen a lot of retail brands doing. Doesn't need to be retail stores, even cafes, coffee shops, more hospitality-based businesses are doing the same thing as well. On the more consumer packaged goods sides, we have brands like Juneshine, you can see here, who are doing delivery. If it's not national delivery through FedEx, UPS, USPS, obviously being able to do local delivery is obviously a huge plus. Building that community of consumers online locally in your city or state or county is a big impact. And then as well, like kind of transitioning some of the services or products that you have into more online services in terms of boot camps and webinars and things like that can be a huge win. Josh, I'll just stick on that first one right there. Olive and June on here on the right, I think is probably one of the most brick and mortar type businesses that you'll see. They obviously have locations that people come into, get their nails done, pedicures, manicures, stuff like that. They've been able to kind of transition more online and sell packages of boot camps, webinars, training courses on how people can, stay looking good with, nails and any of those type, like personal beauty type products or services online, and just sort of utilizing their online channel to be able to sell products and services to consumers. I think that's a huge opportunity. And I really struggle to find businesses that have absolutely no revenue possibility during this time. It can be challenging, and it may take a little bit of time to build out, but the solution is there, and it's up to brands to kind of get creative and find a way that they can build revenue over these next, 2-3 months as we move forward. Another business that I think is doing a really good job and helping small businesses as well is the Airbnb. So people that are generally more experience-based, they have people come in to their location and, build experiences and learn new things and explore new locations. Airbnb has transitioned more to an e-commerce or online experience where people can, through video, comfort of their own home, get to know different locations, experiences, even foods and cooking and rituals and recipes and things like that. This is a huge step forward, I think, for Airbnb and really helping small businesses that rely on this kind of in-person income to kind of leverage that more online experience. So I think that's been huge for them. Moving on, I think the second thing is really how can brands be present during this time online? If you're a brick and mortar business, maybe traditionally you've relied more on in-person relationships and sales and things like that. But we're seeing a lot of brands move online, building their social following, building the content that they're pushing out on social, whether it be media and video, or moving on to like the blog and the content side, infographics, blog posts, podcasts, and things like that. So really taking a look at what content you can be pushing to again, build value in the short term, but also keep top of mind awareness and brand awareness for when people start going outside more and they have the opportunity to start spending money again. So brands like Rourke, who are traditionally, brick and mortar retail, they've started doing live streaming with some different influencers and ambassadors that they have, sharing content, sharing the behind the scenes story about the brand and these influencers and kind of how they got involved in their industry. I think that's a huge game changer and a really big opportunity for brick and mortar brands to start sharing their story a little bit more and giving people a little bit more of, behind the scenes, how they got started and what their story is. Another local brand here in San Diego, I think, has done a super good job is Roadrunner right here. So they're one of the biggest retail shoe brands. They sell a ton of the top-notch brands that you see, and they've predominantly been brick and mortar as well. So they have a ton of retail locations. They've been sharing a lot of content on their website as well as social, giving people an idea on what they can do during this downtime, whether it's in-home workouts, whether it's focusing more on fitness, stretching, all the interest categories that their target audience is focusing on. I think this is super important because what it's going to do is build value and a trustworthy community that really have an authentic brand following for the Roadrunner business. And also what that's going to do is keep them top of mind for when, 2 months down the road, 1 month down the road, as people start getting outside, exercising outside more again, this is going to be one of the first places they think of to get their, running fitness equipment and things like that. So huge thing is just what content can we provide as a brand to our followers to help build their audience and build that value in our product. And then thirdly, I think a big thing is with less traffic coming into the store, businesses doing more curbside delivery, e-commerce type stuff. What can we do with our current situation in our retail locations to help build value for customers? So looking at how our products are displayed, looking at our window placements, our outside signage, all those different locations that consumers interact with on a daily basis when they come into the store. How can we build that experience and kind of improve how we visually represent the business to people? And I think a good example of a brand that's done this throughout the years, not just recently, is Lululemon. Figuring out a way to engage people in that experience within the stores and really have them interact with different features and experiences around these retail locations and build value in the brand and really create something memorable for those consumers to take away, I think is a really important thing. So something we'll get into in a couple of minutes as well, but there's so much opportunity, I think, in the retail space for stores to really look at how consumers are interacting with their store and their locations. And, how can we improve that for future to really build that as much as possible? So Nick, I'll hand off to you, mate, if you want.
Yeah. Another thing that brick and mortar companies, and I think brands, products, anybody can do right now is really partnering with those within your customer base and the tribe, the influencers, the people that are part of your brand, that understand your brand. Maybe you might not have the resources, or maybe you have the inventory, but a lot of brands, companies, products are finding ways to use what they have combined with the community that they have and create something together right now that can attack Codeve, that can bring us all together and find more ways to find those wins together. I saw the other day that one of the presidents or one of the owners of the Philadelphia 76ers, Michael Rubin, created an initiative called All In, where he got several celebrities. I saw Drake was giving up a flight on Air Drake and a few games to sit with him and party with him one weekend. And he auctioned all this off for COVID victims and, just finding ways to do what you can. Another example right here is the restaurant project, Haas, which is a liquor brand up here in the Bay Area, created partnerships with restaurants across America to create drinks that reflect their culinary approach. So they aligned with the chefs of these restaurants to create drinks that represented those restaurants, and 100% of the profits went back to those restaurants, enabling them to support their employees and cover the cost during this COVID. So it goes back to just finding what are the resources, what are the things that we have that we can use to help this community, and how can we push forward together. The next trend I would say is promote gift cards. I saw this on a small local level, even here in the Bay Area. I'm finding a lot of restaurants that are, one or two or even smaller franchises. They're customers like myself who would go there once a month or twice a month. We're finding ourselves buying gift cards to help support that restaurant. Maybe we can't go there in the next month to sit down with our family but what we can do is support them by buying a gift card now and using it later. And we're seeing a lot of from bigger brands, Vineyard Vines, Nike, Macy's, all adapting to this relax, recharge, work from home, and having these discounts on a site-wide. And also right here is Gifya. If companies or brands currently do not have a gift card, they can easily go here, make a digital gift card, send it out to their customers and start there. Yeah, so I would say this kind of wraps up all of the trends, but also strategies that brick and mortar, smaller companies, brands, products can take when they're trying to be proactive during this COVID time.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Yeah, so definitely super excited to, like I was saying earlier, to have a longtime client with us, Alex from Kahoots. He's essentially the director of marketing. So Kahoots, they have 23 stores. They have an e-commerce store now. They're in SD, Orange County, LA. You name it, and they're constantly expanding. But I think what's so unique about this brand is just authenticity to the actual pet industry itself. And so they've seen a lot of success. I mean, they've been building it for years and years, to say the least. But we're just really excited to have Alex on here. Ben, I know I wanted to kick it over to you. I know you had a couple questions to kind of ask and just really relay that information to the audience. You want to go from there, man?
For sure. Let me unmute. Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So we got a few questions for you, Alex. I think firstly, I would love for us to kind of get a little bit of a background on, you sort of what industries you came from and how you got involved with Kahoots. I know you've sort of joined them in the last couple of years, but if you could give us a little background, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick. Thanks, Ben. And so I'm a born and raised San Diegan, and so I kind of came up surrounded by our communities here. And when I got out of college, one of my first stops was the beer industry. And so I actually spent a lot of my time working and marketing craft beer to San Diego and the rest of the U.S. primarily, and did that for a number of years. That was, of course, interesting just because I'm dealing with products that, I'm passionate about, a fun product that people love, who doesn't like craft beer or doesn't understand its, importance or can relate to it in some way. And so I learned a lot during my stay with AleSmith here in San Diego. Actually, this photo is a picture from back in the day, if you will, from that time. But since then, I've moved on to other fun industries. Of course, most importantly, Kahoots. Like you have here in the summary here, we're about 23 stores if you count our e-commerce. So 22 stores, brick and mortar, extending all the way up into Chatsworth, Moore Park, northern LA area. And really just been, hitting the ground running since I've been here about a year and a half now, fine-tuning our entire online presence, and then moving on to kind of looking towards inwards on the brand and seeing what we're missing. Mission, fundamentals, things we stand by, partnerships, which I feel are super important in this day and age. Anything the customers, our loyal customers from years, things they've always wanted to see from us that maybe they haven't gotten before. Really just trying to bring a fresh perspective to the company here. It's a very long-standing company. They were founded in 1987, so they definitely have a history. But over that time, the marketplace has changed so much. If you look at just the last month or so, you've seen this marketplace just accelerate so quickly, and consumers learning new ways to digest information and interact with their brands. We've, over the course of 2-3 years, we've seen a transition onto online across pretty much the entire market.
Right.
But seeing it compressed down to 1 month, that people are like, oh, I have to go online because there's no other options, or I have to call my favorite stores and see if they offer curbside pickup. So it's really this interesting balance of coming up with solutions kind of on the fly for both our customers and for us internally to make sure everything, syncs up nicely. And because, since day one, we've always just been here for the customer, listening to what customers want and delivering it as best we can, with the biggest smile on our face, because that's really what we enjoy doing day in and day out. And so, yeah, we're kind of just moving along here, coming up with solutions, like I said. So it's just a crazy time to be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least.
And how's kind of the in-store experience changed? Do you guys have people in store at the moment, like that can go inside, or is it just strictly curbside pickup?
So at all of our stores, we're allowing anyone to come in. Nothing on that kind of side of things is regulated. We're not enforcing people to wear gloves when they come in or anything like that. All of our store managers, of course, understand to the best of their ability anything new related to COVID and what they should be practicing and CDC standards. So, that's a kind of a new job in itself, is just to stay on top of those changes that are going on and make sure we're kind of ahead of the curve. But yeah, looking big picture, foot traffic in stores is definitely down. E-commerce is up, and we're trying to meet the customer halfway by offering that curbside pickup to kind of fill that void. But again, it's all very difficult because our business is very touchy-feely. People come in with their animals, they talk to us, people that they actually know. I mean, sales associates I've known for years that they come in and actually get, information from, almost like a pseudo vet in some ways. And so we're kind of not we're afraid, but we're sad that we're missing out on that touch point. That's something we really pride ourselves in. So taking that away now, you just have to make sure you're extending that same type of vibe, whether it's online, through any interactions via email, through helping anyone out to their car, or just meeting them out to the car and, kind of being there for them. So, I mean, is it a natural progression of what we've always done? Yes. Is it new and kind of scary and strange and, you need solutions on the fly? Absolutely. So we're just trying to, take care of our customers as best we can, with, disregarding any situation or circumstances.
Yeah. I have a question on that too. Then, like, just, your brand is obviously very, your reputation is predicated on those micro experiences, as I call it, right? You going out, you chatting with them, you building rapport, which is something that you guys have done a phenomenal job with, versus like, the Petco's, the PetSmarts, you kind of just go in, you get out. Where are you kind of foreseeing like some of your stores going in the future, right? Like, are there any conversations on your end in terms of like what's next with it? Obviously, I'm sure some stores are more impacted than other. I'm just kind of curious where your head's at with the future of retail, or if you guys have any insight on that.
I mean, regarding brick and mortar, I think the number one thing to keep in mind is underserved communities. There's a lot of communities out there that, they may not have a Petco or PetSmart nearby, or access to certain vet care and those types of resources. And so we just want to make sure that the customers know that we are there and looking at these communities to see where we fit and how we can kind of become part of their lives. And if we can't find a location in a community like that, it kind of pressures us to make those resources available via online. And so we've definitely seen an uptick in like blog readership and just overall interaction between us and our customers, across all the channels, really. So for us, I mean, is it going to maybe pause some of us opening stores? Yeah, I mean, that totally could happen. Are there plenty of places to open stores in the U.S.? Absolutely. You have other neighboring states that we could branch into. I mean, we're only in California, so we even have the rest of California to look at. But again, the data is definitely shifting around with consumer behaviors changing. And so I think you just have to take a deeper dive and scrutinize the location even more so in this day and age. I mean, a location will make or break a brick and mortar. So you just have to really take your time, especially now, before you, really jump in.
Yeah, and I think on that note, you make a good point. Josh mentioned earlier about the whole supply and demand. How does the way you guys are looking at stores and consumer behavior and things like that, like how is recently kind of affected store supplies and demand from customers? And also, I guess a second question there is like how many customers have kind of transitioned to that online retail?
Okay, well, first off, I mean, the demand increased dramatically at the beginning of the COVID crisis. Toilet paper is a prime example of what people are rushing out to buy. Actually, at that time, I didn't even realize that pet was an essential business. So that was a nice little surprise. I still had a job to come back to the next day. But I mean, really, supply is tough. And when you have companies that, send home their workforce, or, they're not even, legally allowed to have certain people come in to fill their roles, you're going to get those gaps. And supply chains don't like gaps. I mean, that's why people have full-time jobs, scrutinizing people's logistics and figuring out, time and order volume, shelf life, and just the whole gamut of different things that are taken into account when you're looking at product, especially product that expires, right? So for us, that was the primary challenge. A lot of people stockpiling product, a lot of initial demand, which we met, but it did run our reserves pretty dry. And I think it did for a lot of companies in the space, just because no one was really expecting it. It was just kind of a distant hearsay at a time, when China first encountered the whole dilemma. And no one really thought of it being an issue here in the States. And then, within hours of news, coming across that, it's kind of spreading outwards, people were all crazed. So meeting that initial demand and then continue to be there for the customer after that is very important. And so we kind of, we immediately knew that was going to be an issue. And so our buying team immediately just jumped in it, gathered the troops, so to speak, to make sure that we were communicating effectively with these suppliers so they'd be able to meet us with product, especially in the future, when you really don't know how much you're going to need. So I think that kind of covers the first part of that question, because that's still a pain point for us. But now we're learning kind of how to work through it, what we can do, new changes, new processes we can implement that kind of, can just soften the blow, because it's that issue is going to be there for another month or two. I would, just looking out. And so for us, it's just, make sure that e-commerce is stocked up. As soon as that runs out, we start kind of looking at other stores and seeing if we can do any type of transfers between stores. Because we do have those 22 locations that all have different, they carry the same product, but their inventories do vary. And so it's a kind of a game of chess where you're shuffling around, different moves to see what is most effective, for that time and place. So it's an ongoing challenge for us. Again, it's just one of those things that you really need to get ahead of, and I don't think a lot of people were prepared. I consider ourselves a little lucky just because we're always looking at supply and new products, and since we're private label, we have tons of our own Kahoots products. We rely on our manufacturers, a whole deal. So we always have to stay communicating with them to make sure that they know what we need and we know what they can provide.
Yeah, 100%.
You said like 1 to 2 months potentially coming out of this COVID. Well, what if all of your customers resort to the e-commerce side? Would you guys ever think about, every time I go into a pet store, I see it's usually a huge space. Would you guys ever think about using that pet store for other things within the pet industry? Have you thought about like getting creative for that specific community? You might have 22 stores, but depending on the location, could you have like almost like an indoor like dog park, or could you like find ways to reuse that real estate, but at the same time, still selling online, still supporting that community, just finding new and innovative ways to move with kind of what we're all experiencing?
So regarding space, our locations are roomy and they have higher ceilings. There's plenty of space between rows, but you can't forget that it's the products that really do take up the space, and everyone is fighting for that space, right? So we never have an empty shelf or an empty end cap or an empty corner of the store. That's kind of rare to come by. We do have some locations that maybe have excess space where we can shift around to for whatever purpose. And with those locations, they have actually been known to hold events and any type of fundraisers or donation drives kind of take up that space. Of course, with COVID, we can't really have those events at this time. But during normal business, day in and day out, our stores do feature fun events and hold events and those types of things where we kind of utilize that space. For companies that are really big and have a lot of excess space, it's probably more of a challenge, especially right now, because we're not getting that foot traffic. I think the answer to those problems is probably a little bit more convoluted. But for Kahoots to say it hasn't been an issue, and even with COVID, I can't see it really being a huge issue moving forward, just because we have so much product in our stores, on our shelves, and the space is pretty well, taken into account. So
I think to that point too, that you mentioned, Nick, about the stores and the space, Kahoots is a brand that I think is very well known for that customer experience, right? When people come in, they're always greeted. They call them Kahooligans for a reason, right? Because you guys have built this really strong community of people that are diehard pet lovers, and they get to know the people that they see in the store every week. And I think back to the point of, being able to upgrade that in-store experience during this time when there's not as many consumers in the store. I think it's something that you guys do really well. Something that's always stuck with me is the fact that your stores have, your shelves are never higher than someone's shoulders, so that the consumers can be seen by the employees and they can be helped easily, instead of having to go to these huge department stores with, walls higher than you can imagine, and there's no help or service being done. I think that's a huge testament to you guys and your ability to really focus on that customer experience when they come in the store. And I think that's something that a lot of people should be focusing on right now when there's no one inside. How can we improve that customer experience so that people get what they need, they get the experience and that positive vibe when they come here, and that way the next time they think about pet food, they want to go back to that same experience they had the first time. So I think it's something you guys have done really well, and I'm stoked to be a part of it as well. So well done.
Yeah, that's a good point of view there, because from day one, it's always about the customer experience, and the one thing that came out of COVID, I think, for a lot of people is a little extra spare time. And so any of that downtime that we used to spend answering tons of emails, that inbox is now empty, and so you can start kind of getting extra critical with in-store customer experience, or projects that you maybe put on the back burner for a long time because you didn't have the bandwidth. So, to go back to your point, Ben, the shelves being lower was definitely part of someone's idea in the very beginning, right? They got critical. They were tired of going into, big box stores and not being able to find a customer service representative, right? They just couldn't see them. And the people working couldn't see, people's faces and, the looks of confusion or them wandering around the store. You just don't have that. So it took someone, critical thinking cap back then to say, let's bring the shelves down. Let's be able to see our customers' faces. Let's be able to know where they are in the store, so you don't have to, walk around aimlessly looking for a customer, and you know when to help them and when they're looking for you. But the outside of the stores, I mentioned to you guys, I'm trying to see what we can do with some displays and how to kind of bring the in-store experience outward. So that's definitely one of my projects now, with a little extra spare time. So
yeah. Go for Josh.
That's all. I was going to say, what are some of the key lessons that you think you've learned that other people can kind of take away from this over the last, month or so that you've learned, in your position that you can maybe leverage and other people can learn from you from?
I would say for me personally, it's always meet the customer halfway.
Like that.
I was bombarded by emails the first few weeks of March from every company under the sun that I've ever communicated with my entire life, it seemed, about, here's a letter from the CEO making sure you guys are aware that we're keeping up with the, safety standards, things like that. And with so many people's inboxes getting flooded, first thing I was like, all right, forget the e-blast this month. No need. People are so tired of getting their, inbox blown up right now. Let's just take a hiatus this month. People have plenty of other things they need to take care of and, things to get done. Let's give them a little break. Let's not hit them over the head with COVID stuff and tell them what we're doing and what we're changing. Because what it really comes down to is we didn't change all that much. We're wearing the masks and we're, maybe sanitizing a little bit more, but our stores have always been really clean. We've always had the strictest standards of, presenting the store to, to every customer. And so in that way, nothing's really changed. But the customer's mindset has changed. And so by meeting them halfway, it's, they don't want to come to the store. Let's meet them out with their car. But let's not freak them out with, extra COVID virus this and virus that. Let's try to keep doing business as normal as possible and keep delivering that same, high level of customer satisfaction that we've always, been accustomed to. And, what we have to do on the sidelines, some of that, we don't even have to let the customer know. That's just going to kind of cloud their experience, that much more. So let's keep things plain and simple. If the customers want to do, curbside pickup, that's totally fine. What do we need to do to accomplish that task? What kind of POS systems do we need to change? And making kind of those solutions on the fly, like I mentioned. So really just understand your customers, know what they actually want. Don't just, think what they want, because a lot of those times, you may be wrong and you may be just doing what everyone else does because that's what everyone's doing, right? So yeah, stay unique and just know your customers. And if you really have a question, just go ask them. That's the nice thing about our corporate headquarters, that we're based and located right on top of one of our stores. So if we have a question about product or we want to, dive into the customer psyche, we just go downstairs. I have plenty of people I can talk to and, get a spur up a conversation and see what they're looking for, what they need.
Awesome. I have a question just more so about the marketing advertising. Obviously, you guys have your e-commerce. You run a ton of digital. I'm sure there's some traditional in there as well. How has kind of the strategy around your marketing and advertising as a retail and as an e-commerce store kind of changed in the last few weeks as well?
Oh, that is a very big question, Ben. But I'll try to keep it a little short. So I have noticed that a lot of companies far and wide are just pulling back, right? A lot of them are shrinking their marketing expenses. They're just trying to reduce those expenditures as much as possible. But I think it really comes into some, competitive analysis and knowing what kind of gaps, or voids kind of come to the surface with people pulling back their marketing. And so for us, we really are just keeping a close eye on, cost per click, cost per impressions and things like that. And kind of where they move around is kind of where we decide to fit in. And so, right now we're taking a bigger look into geofencing and more location-based marketing tactics. Obviously, print hasn't been doing so hot. With COVID happening, I've heard of actually a couple long-standing publications going out of business because they just don't have the marketing to support them. And that's the issue with those types of companies, that they really rely on advertising dollars to stay afloat. So when people pull back because there's more effective means to getting your message out, unfortunately they do suffer from that. So with events drying up at the moment, just because no one can be gathering, of course, it freed up some of our funds. So yeah, we're going to be chasing down geofencing, looking more into some online opportunities, whether it's ads or online radio, and just kind of looking at what's growing amidst all of this kind of chaos and just changes far and wide. So
yeah, it's pretty awesome, because it's we're seeing, it's like you either take one of two point of views, right? It's like, one, you kind of like pull back, or two, you kind of go all in. And we're seeing, time and time again, the amount of time people are spending on Facebook and Instagram, that has risen. The amount of people are on Netflix and Hulu, that is risen, right? And so I always look at, like, how do you, in moments of situations, how do you become opportunistic about it, right? And I think this is a huge opportunity, especially, like, I think if anything, we've seen such a huge increase. I just think in the pet industry over the last like 10 to 15 years, with it being a lot more acceptable. And then I don't know about you guys, but I probably have like 5 or 6 friends now within the last 3 weeks that have gotten a new puppy. So you can tell, that's definitely something that is ramping up. That's why I like your guys' industry, because it really reminds me, kind of shadows the alcohol industry, right? It's very, things are doing well, it does well, things are not doing so hot, whatnot. So with that, it's pretty interesting. I'm just kind of curious from your standpoint, what are you most excited with online or with the website, with what you're doing? And how do you guys think you'll, maybe just going a little bit deeper, like, how are things going for you on the e-commerce side of things?
Well, I mean, that first week we saw our e-commerce sales almost triple. And so that was, thank goodness that we had a website that's been working so well, thanks to you guys putting that, that great website together. So there's your plug for the video.
I knew Josh was going to fit one in there.
I'm not even going to talk about the silver Addy. I'll save that for an Instagram post later this week. But I mean, you got to be picky and choosy. You don't want to drop out of marketing altogether. And we knew from not from day one, but at least for the last couple of years, that social is really where the pets go. It's not Petco anymore. It's really social, and it goes for the pets and their parents, right? And so we knew we had to put a little bit more focus on influencer marketing, creating some really cool imagery, some really nice content, making sure that it stays consistent with the message of the brand, but also look and feel of the brand. And I think if you just look at the website, how it's laid out now, it's all based around functionality and just being very easy to anyone to walk through and get what they need, but also to have that imagery that captures people's attention and shows the kind of bond and the lifestyle that pets have with their parents, essentially. So just doing more and more social, tons of Facebook campaigns, Instagram. As a company, we don't touch Twitter really, or LinkedIn, and so a lot of our marketing is focused around Facebook and Instagram. But with that being said, it's constant evolution, right? We're fine tuning our Instagram, we're fine tuning our Facebook. We're connecting with new influencers every day, seeing how we can work with them, any type of cross promos, investigating partnerships with like-minded businesses, specifically nonprofits that maybe they need some help, and we have something that could alleviate some of their pain points. We're all in, and so again, this is a time to really kind of grab yourself, grab a friend, make friends, kind of come together, see what type of partnerships exist, and kind of start chasing them down, because we all kind of need someone right now. So kind of just going to keep going that route and keep pushing social out as much as we can, without being redundant or excessive, and hope that people enjoy what they see and really, keep using us as a resource like they have been.
Yeah, and can you talk about, I know, if for people that aren't familiar, I think what you guys did with one of your products, if you could go a little bit deeper into it, was kind of partnering with another company. And I just love that, now looking at, we're talking about currency and health and wellness, kind of shifting the realm forward. I love the last line you just used, essentially, how can you partner up with somebody and how can you help kind of move the needle? Can you talk about one of the partnerships that you have right now that you're kind of helping co-brand and push out a product of yourself?
Yeah, I mean, so we have tons of partnerships. Each of our stores works hand in hand with local rescues and shelters. They do the donation drives, like I mentioned earlier. And so we're always kind of staying in touch with these people and seeing what we can do to help them. Over the last year, we created a relationship with Tender Loving Canines Assistant Dogs. And their whole mission was to transform lives pretty much across the board. So individuals with autism, PTSD, courtrooms or facilities that need dogs for any type of companionship, or like, for example, the court cases, they have these dogs that, will settle a kid when they're, being investigated or, doing whatever, legal stuff that they need, that, that coping mechanism, something that kind of chills them out. And so it was really a cool company. They started in San Diego, right in our backyard. We talked to them on multiple meetings, and really just our brands aligned so well. It was almost, it would have been a stupid decision not to pursue it and not to come to some agreement to work hand in hand with them. And we've both been better for it. And so over the last year, they were able to get more assistant dogs into the hands that, people that need them. We've been able to do collaborative products where they will actually see some of the return from those products being sold. All those profits made will go back to them. So interesting, creative ways of fundraising, and then also just donating food to them. I mean, the first pain point they brought up to us was, hey, we're getting donations, but they're from all these different dog brands. Our dogs are eating all this different food, and as anyone with any dog owner knows, that as soon as you switch a dog's food, no matter how good of a switch or how bad of a switch, there's going to be that transition period where their stomach's just not used to it. Yeah. And I've never met a dog that didn't have any dietary, weirdness happen from a transition like that. And so, we said, instead of getting all these different brands, what if you only offered Kahoots food to your dogs? We recommend the lamb and brown rice because there's no chicken in it, so they don't have any chicken allergies and stuff like that. And try it out and see how it goes. Well, everything checked out, and the dogs are so much better for it now. All of their skin issues are gone. Like just happiness across the board. All our dogs are feeling better. Of course, that helps the relationship the dogs now have with their new owners. And for us, it's nice to know that the dogs are being well taken care of, and then hopefully when they change hands, that same type of care will continue with the new owner. So, yeah, that was really a big one. They've also just kind of happenstance. They happen to fold their business in with Guide Dogs of America, which is quite a substantial company with way more funding than Tender Loving Canines had. And so with those added resources, they've really blossomed. And that also created a path for us to now talk to a larger organization and see what their pain points are. So you really never know where your network's going to take you. But I do have to say that if you are going to work with nonprofits and you are going to donate, be sure to get the word out, because for a long time, no one really knew that we were giving back to the community as much as we did and have and continue doing. So just getting vocal about it and, not hammering it over the head, but just allowing people to digest that information on their own terms and just understand that you're not here just to make money. You're here to be a profitable business that hopefully with its profits can bring everyone else up and create some very meaningful, lasting partnerships that kind of everyone will be better off for. So, no plan in stopping that, whether it's COVID or other things. That's just an ongoing, part of our mission. So we hope to keep it up and to find some new partnerships down the road too. So just keep it moving.
Cool. Perfect. You guys have any other last parting questions?
I think just on that last point, kudos to you, Alex, for going in with a good heart and coming out with a blessing. Just giving away from yourself and committing to, like we said, just finding the resources. How can you alleviate some of those pain points? You guys finding success and being able to support those around you, I think is really powerful for any brand and company to do.
Yeah.
And, we have to remind people, we're here as a company, not just for pets, but, primarily people. And so even when we, because we have very, pretty strict hiring. Like if we have a job fair and there's 100 people, we maybe hire 2. There's very few people that kind of fit the Kahoots vibe. And really, it takes time to identify, those people that kind of share that feeling. But, once you do, it just opens up so many opportunities. So, just staying true to the customer, letting them know that you're here for them, is really the best thing you can do.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, anytime.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Alex, thank you again, man. Really appreciate you just taking the time, and awesome to kind of see you guys are such a good example of what a brand can be. And I'm hoping that post-COVID, a lot of people adopt this new norm in terms of the motivations, the lifestyle, the mentality, the humanityness. And essentially because of that, I think we'll all be better off. So, cool, man. Just want to thank you again. Take care, everybody. And next week we'll be looking forward to another buddy from Jerk Nutrition. We'll have him next Friday. So hopefully have you guys out. Take care. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for having me.